The night sky over Earth was calm, too calm. Stars twinkled like silent witnesses, but humanity did not know those stars carried eyes. Eyes filled with arrogance and hunger. It began with a sound. Not thunder, not explosions, just a single tone. It rang across every city, every home, every ship floating in orbit. Then the screens lit up. The face appeared tall, cold, alien. Its skin was pale like stone, its eyes burning gold. Behind it stood others, draped in robes of authority. Together they spoke as one voice, their words cutting into the hearts of billions. Earth, you are not free. You are not sovereign. You are nothing but a stray world at the edge of our empire. We are the Galactic Council. You will kneel or you will burn. The words were translated instantly, spoken in English, Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, Hindi, Spanish, every language at once. Humanity listened, frozen in shock. The camera panned outward, and Earth's people saw what waited above them. A fleet, not dozens, not hundreds, thousands of warships. Their hulls shimmered like knives dipped in starlight. Each ship was larger than a mountain. Their weapons glowed with power older than Earth's history. In Paris, a mother hugged her child and whispered prayers. In Delhi, men argued in the streets about surrender. In Washington, leaders shouted over each other about negotiation. In Tokyo, silence filled entire rooms as fear pressed against every heart. To kneel meant survival. To refuse meant extinction. That was the choice the aliens left for Earth. But hidden deep beneath the planet's surface, there were others who did not tremble. In an underground command room carved into Alaska's icy mountains, old screens flickered with alien images. A handful of men and women sat around a long steel table. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, the kind of people the world had long forgotten. Their faces were calm, too calm for what was happening outside. The eldest of them, a general with scars on his cheek, leaned forward. His voice was low. So they've finally arrived. A woman in a white lab coat adjusted her glasses. Yes, she replied. And they think we're defenseless. The general's lips curled into something between a smile and a growl. They have no idea what waits in the dark. For decades, humanity had been watched by alien scouts. The Council believed Earth was weak, still crawling toward the stars, still fighting over scraps of land and water. They had not seen what humanity had built where no eyes could reach. They had not seen the shadows that slept beneath the oceans and moons. The broadcast continued. You have 3 days. Kneel before us, or we will strip your planet down to ash. Obey, or you will cease to exist. Panic spread through the streets. The weak begged for surrender. The powerful whispered of compromise. Politicians shouted about peace. But far away from all the noise, the general placed his hand on a panel built into the table. Lights came alive. Maps unfolded in the air. Strange symbols glowed red. Activate them, he said simply. The lab coat woman hesitated. Once we wake them, there is no going back. The general's eyes narrowed. We never built them to sleep forever. Far beyond human cities, far from the Council's gaze, things began to stir. In the deepest trenches of the Pacific Ocean, massive doors of black steel groaned as they unlocked. Entire mountains trembled as shadows rose from the abyss. Their shapes were monstrous, sharp, and silent. Glowing veins ran across their hulls like rivers of fire. On the far side of the moon, where sunlight never reached, towers of obsidian metal lit up. The dust of centuries shook loose as enormous machines crawled from their craters. In deserts, hidden under endless sands, the earth split apart as black monoliths cracked open. From within rose ships so colossal that they blotted out the horizon. The Black Armada had awakened. Back in the Council's flagship, the alien admiral narrowed his golden eyes. His sensors picked up strange readings. Movement, power surges. He barked orders and his crew scrambled. Report. The officer's voice trembled. Unknown vessels detected. 30, no 40, and rising fast. Their signatures are human. The admiral slammed his fist. Impossible. This world was primitive. But the evidence was undeniable. Across Earth, humans lifted their heads to the sky. On news feeds, live cameras captured the impossible. Massive ships of black steel tearing free from the oceans, the deserts, the moon. They were unlike any alien craft. Their design was angular, predatory, merciless. They did not gleam like polished silver. They absorbed light, as if they were born from shadows themselves. The people watching whispered the same words over and over again, across every language, in every corner of the world. The Black Armada. It's real. The general in Alaska stood, his voice calm but heavy with power. The galaxy thought Earth would kneel. Instead, he pressed the final command. Engines roared like ancient beasts. The Black Armada rose higher, their cannons glowing with unearthly fire. They will learn that humanity kneels to no one. The night after the Council's demand was not silent anymore. The skies above Earth glowed with moving shadows. The Black Armada had risen, and the galaxy was about to witness something it had never imagined. On every channel, cameras tried to follow the impossible sight. From oceans, from deserts, from the hidden side of the moon, warships of black steel climbed into the heavens. They looked nothing like the shining silver fleets of the Council. These ships were darker than space itself, jagged like blades, with red veins glowing faintly along their hulls. They looked alive, like predators finally released from a cage. People stood in streets, watching in disbelief. Children pointed at the sky. Soldiers who had felt powerless only hours before now clenched their fists with pride. For the first time since the threat had begun, fear was not the only feeling in their hearts. There was something else, hope. Inside the Council flagship, Admiral Corvath stared at the screens. His golden eyes narrowed. Hundreds of alien officers whispered nervously. "Report again," the Admiral roared. "Confirmed, Admiral," an officer stammered. 48 human warships, all heavily armed. Their power signatures, off the scale. Corvath slammed his clawed hand onto the console. "They are primitives. They cannot build this." But the truth was already in front of him. The Black Armada had awakened, and it was rising higher. Deep within the flagship of the Armada, a ship called Obsidian Dawn, a human captain stood at the command deck. His uniform bore no medals, no bright colors, only black. His ship was silent, its crew focused, every movement precise. "Engines at full power," the first officer reported. "Shields stable," another said. The captain's voice was calm, almost cold. "Form the shadows. Make them fear the dark." The Black Armada moved like a single creature. Ships aligned in patterns no Council fleet had ever seen before. They didn't float lazily like alien warships. They cut through space like arrows, sharp and silent. On Earth, people watched live feeds, their mouths open in awe. Some whispered, "We were never defenseless." They were waiting. In Alaska's hidden command center, the old general stood before a massive screen, watching the formation. His heart beat heavy with pride. "The galaxy thought Earth was weak," he murmured. "Now they will see our steel." The scientist beside him nodded, her eyes wide. "We didn't just build ships. We built fear itself." Admiral Corvath was losing patience. His fleet outnumbered the humans 3-1. But unease spread through his ranks. The human ships did not blink, did not waver, did not hesitate. "Order the first strike," he commanded. Moments later, dozens of Council warships opened fire. Bright lances of energy cut across the void, screaming toward the Black Armada. Explosions lit the darkness, powerful enough to burn cities if aimed at Earth. But something happened. The black ships shifted. They didn't scatter. They moved together, their shadows twisting like smoke. The beams of light missed their targets, curving past them as if the shadows bent reality itself. The Black Armada glided unharmed. Gasps filled the Council bridge. "Admiral," one officer whispered, "their ships, they dance with the fire." Corvath's teeth clenched. "Then let them burn." He raised his claw. "All guns. Fire again." The sky became chaos. Alien ships poured fire into the dark, filling space with storms of light. But the Armada did not break. They moved as though the void itself obeyed them. And then, the shadows answered back. On the obsidian dawn, the captain gave a single command: return the fire. The Armada's cannons awoke. They didn't shine with golden beams like the Council. Their weapons pulsed red, deep and hungry, like the beating of a heart. When they fired, the blasts were silent, no sound, only destruction. One Council battleship vanished in a flash, split in half by a beam that seemed to erase its very core. Another ship exploded as if crushed from within. Alien admirals watched their proud fleet burn in seconds. In the cities of Earth, people erupted with cheers. The fear that had chained them turned into thunderous shouts of joy. Strangers hugged each other in the streets, their voices crying the same words. We are not kneeling. But inside the Council chamber, far away on another world, alien leaders panicked. They had demanded Earth's surrender, expecting obedience. Instead, they watched their fleet suffer against ships no one believed humans could ever build. One elder slammed his staff. This is impossible. They should not have this power. Another whispered in dread. If they can defeat our fleets, what else have they been hiding? On Earth, in the cold command room, the general closed his eyes for a moment. The scientist asked softly, "Do you think we can truly win?" The old man opened his eyes again. They glowed with fire. "We did not build the Black Armada to win small battles," he said. "We built it so humanity will never kneel to anyone again." The shadows of steel moved forward, cutting through alien fire. The Armada was not just defending Earth, it was declaring something greater. The galaxy had thought Earth was weak. But now, every corner of space would learn the truth. The Black Armada was unleashed. The void around Earth was no longer calm. It was a storm of light and shadow, fire and silence. The Council fleet had fired first, confident of an easy victory. They had crushed dozens of worlds before. They believed Earth would be no different. But they had never faced the Black Armada. The human ships moved with frightening precision. They were not just machines, they looked like predators. Their black hulls absorbed enemy fire, twisting through the void as if space itself obeyed them. Their red veins pulsed, glowing brighter with every attack they endured, as if feeding on the rage of their enemies. On the bridge of the Obsidian Dawn, the captain stood silent, his hands behind his back. His crew worked with discipline, no panic, no wasted words. The enemy's barrage lit up their screens, but the captain's gaze never wavered. "Target acquired," the weapons officer whispered. The captain nodded once. "Strike." A beam of crimson fire erupted from the Obsidian Dawn. It did not roar. It did not crackle. It was silent, merciless, and unstoppable. It tore through the nearest Council warship as if slicing paper. The alien dreadnought split apart in a single breath, its pieces scattering into the void. The silence that followed was heavier than any sound. Billions of humans on Earth, watching the battle through shaky transmissions, held their breath. They had just seen the impossible, humanity destroying a ship of the Council in a single shot. The cheer that followed shook cities. In Rio, crowds danced in the streets. In Moscow, people cried and laughed at once. In Lagos, voices rose into the night. "We fight back! We fight back!" But in the Council fleet, fear spread like wildfire. Admiral Korvath slammed his fist on the console. "They are only machines. Break them." Yet each attempt ended the same. The Council ships fired in endless streams, their golden lances filling the void with storms of light. But the Black Armada slipped between them, weaving in perfect unison. Then, one by one, the Armada answered. From the depths of the ocean, the ship known as Leviathan's Fang rose into orbit and fired its cannons. Its blast didn't just destroy an enemy, it devoured it, leaving only silence and drifting dust. From the moon, the warship Nightfall glided into the heart of the battle, its silhouette blotting out stars. Its weapons were invisible until they struck, silent beams that carved through 3 ships at once. And in the desert skies, the monstrous ship Ashen Spear pierced the void with a lance of red fire, shattering a Council carrier that had launched thousands of fighters. Within minutes, The proud fleet that had come to demand Earth's kneeling was burning. Inside the council chamber, chaos erupted. Holograms of destroyed ships flickered across the room. Leaders shouted over each other, their arrogance crumbling into terror. "This is not possible," one cried. "No young race builds such power." Another hissed, "They must have stolen it from someone older, someone ancient." But no answer came. The truth was unbearable. They were not facing stolen weapons. They were facing human creation. On Earth, in the underground command center, the old general stood tall. He watched the council's losses mount with each passing second. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned. "They thought they were hunters," he said. "Now they are prey." Beside him, the scientist leaned forward, whispering, "Do you hear that?" The general frowned. "Hear what?" "The silence," she said softly. "Our ships, they kill without sound. The council does not even know how to fear this yet. But they will." On the flagship of the council, panic began to show even in Admiral Korvatha's golden eyes. He had underestimated this species. The Black Armada was not a bluff. It was not a hidden toy. It was war itself sharpened to perfection. "Retreat is not an option," he growled. "If we fall, the council falls. Crush them." But even as his words echoed, another dreadnought beside his flagship burst apart in flames. Its wreckage drifted past his window like burning ash. Korvatha's teeth clenched. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had never admitted before. Fear. On Earth, humans who had once trembled now stood tall. Hope was a fire spreading faster than fear. In Africa, children painted the Black Armada on walls. In Europe, bells rang as people celebrated each victory. In Asia, voices shouted through the streets, chanting the same word, "Unbroken, unbroken." The galaxy had demanded Earth kneel. Instead, humanity was standing taller than ever before. But the Armada was not finished. On the Obsidian Dawn, the captain's voice remained calm. "Advance. Break their line." The Black Armada surged forward like a tide of steel shadows, cutting into the council fleet with relentless precision. For every human ship, 10 council vessels fell. The first clash was not just a battle. It was a message. And that message was clear. Earth kneels to no one. The galaxy believed humans were reckless dreamers, clever in small ways but weak in the great game of empires. That belief was now shattered. The Black Armada cut through the council fleet like blades through silk. But one question echoed across the stars, whispered by every alien leader watching the battle unfold. Where did the humans get such power? The answer lay not in the present, but in shadows of the past. Decades earlier, long before the council revealed itself, strange signals had reached Earth. Faint, broken whispers from deep space. They were not natural, they carried patterns, codes, warnings. Scientists argued over their meaning, governments denied them, but a handful of visionaries understood. Hidden from the world, they followed those signals to their source. Wrecks buried under ice, fragments lying in deserts, ruins hidden beneath the oceans. They were relics of wars older than history, wars fought by civilizations long erased. The ruins were not whole, but inside their broken pieces lay knowledge. Pieces of machines, fragments of energy cores, shards of strange black metal that swallowed light. Humanity did not copy them. Humanity did something far more dangerous. It learned from them. In secret facilities under mountains, in labs beneath seas, human engineers fused alien fragments with human design. They worked in silence, far from politics, far from public eyes. For every failed test, another breakthrough was hidden away. For every disaster, another secret was locked deeper underground. They named their project the Armada of Shadows. The Black Armada. It was not just a weapon. It was a promise. In the underground command room, the general stared at the battle screen, his hands behind his back. The scientist beside him, her voice low, whispered the truth only a handful knew. "Do you think the world is ready to learn where these ships came from?" she asked. The general's eyes stayed on the screen, watching as a council cruiser was ripped apart by a single beam. The world only needs to know this, he said. That we will never kneel again. She pressed further. But when they ask, when the galaxy demands answers, will you tell them that we built our strength from the bones of the forgotten? The general finally turned his head. His eyes were sharp. No, we tell them it was built by human hands. Because that is the truth. We didn't steal. We didn't beg. We didn't bow. We learned. We built. We endured. And in that endurance, humanity had created something no one expected. In orbit, the Council Admiral Corvatha's fury turned to dread. Reports flooded his command bridge. Admiral, their weapons are not like ours. They bypass shields, they cut through armor. Admiral, our targeting fails. Their ships, they bend around space itself. Corvatha's golden eyes widened. His claws dug into the console. He had seen fragments of such technology before, in ruins whispered to be from the ancients. His voice dropped into a growl. This should not be theirs. They are too young, too weak. He slammed his fist. How could primitives build an armada like this? The truth cut deeper than any weapon. Humanity had taken what others abandoned and turned it into something greater. Far above Earth, the nightfall, darkest of the armada, glided silently. Its captain, a woman with eyes cold as stone, looked at her crew. Do they know? She asked softly. Know what, Captain? Her first officer replied. That every piece of steel, every weapon they fear, was built in silence while they laughed at us. She smiled thinly. They will learn. The nightfall fired. Another council dreadnought broke apart, flames scattering into the void. Across Earth, people began to hear whispers of the secret. Rumors spread faster than fire. Some claimed the ships had been hidden for centuries, left by forgotten gods. Others swore Earth had made a pact with ancient beings. But the truth, buried under layers of lies and shadows, was simpler. Humanity had prepared. Humanity had refused to remain prey. In the council chamber, fear began to twist into something worse. Division. One elder hissed, if Earth could rise like this, others will follow. The slaves we keep, the colonies we rule, they will rebel. Another shouted, then we must crush Earth now, before their secret spreads. But another voice, trembling, replied, what if we cannot? That silence, heavier than any words, told them everything. On Earth, the general spoke once more, his voice steady, his eyes never leaving the burning fleet above. The Black Armada was never built to conquer, he said. It was built so the galaxy would know one thing, that humanity kneels to no one. The scientist looked at him, her voice almost a whisper. And if the council survives this battle? The general's gaze hardened. Then let them carry the story back. Let them tell every empire, every ruler, every tyrant what they saw here tonight. In the skies, the armada advanced, its shadows stretching wider, its cannons glowing red. The secret was no longer hidden. The galaxy now knew the truth. The Black Armada was not a myth. It was real. And it belonged to humanity. The void was burning. Alien wreckage drifted in silence, glowing like dying stars. The council fleet, once proud and unchallenged, was now bleeding. And on Earth, people who had once wept in terror now shouted in triumph. But fear had not vanished. It was only changing its shape. For centuries, the council had ruled the galaxy through fear. Worlds knelt without a fight. Races chained themselves before the first cannon fired. Fear was their greatest weapon, stronger than fleets, sharper than blades. Yet now, before their eyes, that chain was breaking. Across Earth cities, people no longer hid in basements. They poured into the streets, watching the skies, cheering every flash of red fire. Children pointed at the glowing shadows of the Black Armada as if pointing at heroes from legends. Strangers hugged, tears of joy mixing with cries of defiance. One old man in London, who had lived through wars of his own world, raised his voice to the skies. We are not prey, not anymore. Others around him repeated the words until it spread like wildfire. In Africa, drums echoed through villages, beating in rhythm with the Armada's cannons. In Asia, Towers lit up with human voices chanting, "Unbroken, unbowed, unafraid." For the first time in history, Earth's people were united not by fear of their enemies, but by pride in themselves. Inside the Council flagship, Admiral Corvath felt the shift. His officers trembled, whispers of doubt spreading like infection. They are not afraid," one muttered. "They should be broken by now," another stammered. Corvath snarled, his golden eyes burning. "Then we will break them. Increase fire. Make Earth scream." The Council fleet unleashed another storm of light, desperate to crush this defiance. Entire barges streaked toward Earth, threatening cities below. But the Armada moved. The Leviathan's fang rose, intercepting the fire with its massive shields. The blast struck, shaking the ship, but it held. From its core, a surge of red lightning burst outward, shattering 3 alien warships at once. The Nightfall vanished into shadow, only to reappear behind the Council's flanks, tearing through carriers with surgical strikes. The Ashen Spear charged forward, its cannon glowing like molten fire, erasing an entire squadron in one shot. The Black Armada was no longer just fighting, it was protecting. On Earth, in the underground command room, the general watched as alien attacks failed to reach the planet. His heart was steady, but his voice carried fire. "They used fear to rule the stars," he said. "But today, we tear that chain apart." The scientist beside him stared at the screens, her voice trembling with awe. "It's not just us, General. Look, messages from colonies, from slaves, from worlds the Council ruled. They're watching, they're listening, and they're daring to hope." Indeed, across the galaxy, in places far beyond Earth, enslaved races huddled around stolen broadcasts. They saw the Council's ships burning. They saw humans standing unbroken, and they whispered words they had not dared speak for generations. "If Earth can resist, maybe we can too." In the Council chamber, panic deepened. Leaders argued, shouting over one another. "If Earth inspires rebellion, the chains will snap everywhere. We cannot allow this story to spread." "Then destroy Earth," another screamed. "Destroy them before the fire grows." But their fear was already too late. The chain of obedience was cracking. In orbit, the Council fleet faltered. The Armada pressed forward, each strike carving deeper. But the true battle was no longer only of steel, it was of voices. The captain of the Obsidian Dawn ordered his communications officer, "Open the channel. To the Council fleet. To the galaxy." A human voice echoed across every frequency, translated into countless tongues. "We are Earth. We are humanity. You demanded we kneel, but we kneel to no one. If you are ruled by fear, know this, fear can be broken. And tonight, the chain is broken forever." The words spread across stars like fire through dry grass. Council soldiers heard it and trembled. Slaves in distant worlds heard it and wept. Rebels hiding in caves clenched their fists and whispered, "We are not alone." On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Corvath's claws dug deep into the console. He could not stop what was happening. Even if his fleet destroyed Earth, the message had already escaped. Humanity had already won something greater than the battle. They had stolen fear itself. Back in the command room, the scientist leaned close to the general. "You've done more than fight, sir. You've set fire to the galaxy." The general's eyes remained on the burning sky. His voice was steady, but his heart beat with pride. "We didn't start this war," he said, "but we will end the empire built on chains. One battle at a time." Above Earth, the Black Armada pressed forward. Alien ships broke, fire scattered, and the shadows of steel grew larger with every strike. Fear no longer ruled the stars. Humanity had broken it. The battlefield above Saturn was a storm of fire and silence. Rings of ice and stone glowed red as weapons from both sides lit the void. The Council had unleashed its full force, dreadnoughts, carriers, swarms of fighters, everything they had gathered to crush Earth. But the Black Armada did not break. Instead, it advanced. From his flagship, Admiral Corvath snarled orders, his golden eyes burning with desperation. His once flawless fleet was scattered, dozens of ships already drifting as wrecks. Yet pride would not let him retreat. "Bring all reserves forward," he roared. "Surround them, drown them in fire until nothing remains." Across the council lines, thousands of smaller ships surged forward, like a tidal wave of steel. The void shook under the weight of their numbers. For the first time since the Armada had risen, the humans faced a storm greater than their own. On the obsidian dawn, the captain stood tall, his face lit by the glow of Saturn's rings outside the viewport. His crew reported in calm voices. Enemy numbers multiplying. Flank attack forming. Shields at 80%. The captain's voice was steady. "Hold formation. The tide always rises before it falls." His officers looked at him, unsure if he meant the enemy tide or humanity's. The council's fighters swarmed. Hundreds, then thousands. They darted like insects around the great shadows of the Armada, launching volley after volley. Explosions rattled across black hulls, forcing some human ships to stagger. The ashen spear took heavy fire, its shields burning red. For a moment it seemed it might fall, but its cannons roared to life, releasing a lance of crimson that ripped through 6 enemy ships in one breath. The nightfall vanished into the dark, its systems bending light itself. Alien fighters chased after it, firing wildly at shadows. Then, without warning, the nightfall reappeared behind them, shredding the swarm with silent beams. The Leviathan's Fong charged forward, its massive bulk colliding with enemy cruisers, tearing them apart with brute force before its cannons finished the rest. The Armada was bleeding, but it was not bending. On Earth, billions watched the live feed of the battle, their breaths held. Fear returned for a moment as they saw the sheer size of the Council's attack. But then came the counterstrike, the impossible maneuvers of the Armada, the sight of enemy ships breaking like glass. Crowds in every city screamed together, voices rising above the night. "Hold the line! Hold the line!" In the underground command center, the general leaned over the glowing maps. Red markers filled the screen, Council ships closing in from every direction. For the first time, even his jaw tightened. "They mean to drown us," the scientist whispered. The general's voice was iron. "Then we teach them that humans do not drown. We rise." He pressed his hand to the console. "Activate Phase 2. Far in the asteroid belt, hidden among rocks and shadows, more black ships stirred. They had not yet entered the battle, waiting in silence. Now their cores lit up. The Council fleet did not see them until it was too late. Dozens of hidden warships ignited their engines, surging into the fight from behind. Crimson fire lanced across the Council's rear lines, splitting their formation. Admirals shouted in panic as their perfect trap snapped back against them. "The shadows!" one officer cried. "They were waiting in the rocks." Admiral Korvatha's golden eyes widened. His trap had turned into his own cage. The Armada moved like a predator closing its jaws. From the front, the obsidian dawn and ashen spear cut deep into the enemy. From the rear, the hidden fleet crushed their escape routes. From the sides, the Nightfall and Leviathan's Fong tore apart anything that moved. The Council's overwhelming numbers meant nothing. Their power scattered. Their formation shattered. On Earth, the cheers turned into thunder. People cried in the streets, not from fear but from joy. They were watching history, the moment the Council's reign of terror began to crack. Children painted black ships on walls. Old men raised their fists to the sky. Around the globe, voices rose together in a single chant. Humanity kneels to no one. Inside the Council chamber, silence reigned. Reports came in of losses, of panic, of collapse. One elder shook his head in disbelief. "This cannot be," he whispered. "We outnumbered them. We surrounded them." Another slammed his fist. "And still we are losing. Against humans." The chamber filled with fear not of Earth, but of the truth. If one world could resist, others would follow. The tide of rebellion had begun, and no fleet could stop it. On the bridge of the Obsidian Dawn, the captain finally allowed himself a thin smile. "The tide has turned," he said. His crew, bloodied but unbroken, answered with steady voices. Targets destroyed. Council in retreat. Armada standing strong. The captain raised his hand, pointing into the void where the broken council fleet struggled to survive. Advance, he commanded. Let them remember this day. Let them carry fear back to their masters. Above Saturn, the council's proud armada burned. Ships that once terrorized galaxies now drifted as wrecks. Humanity had not just survived the storm, they had become the storm. The tide had turned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The war above Saturn had ended in fire and silence. Council ships drifted like broken bones, their proud banners reduced to ash. Humanity's Black Armada stood tall, black silhouettes against the glowing rings, their crimson veins pulsing like the heartbeat of a new era. But the battle was not the end. It was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, whispers spread faster than light. On slave worlds, chained races looked to the sky and dared to hope. On colonies where the Council's shadow had stretched for centuries, the people raised their heads and asked a forbidden question. If Earth can defy them, why not us? The Council's greatest weapon, fear, was no longer unbroken. It was shattered. And now, the humans carried their armada not for survival, but for a message. On the obsidian dawn, the captain stood on the bridge, his face calm but his eyes sharp. Reports filled the air. Council fleet retreating. Enemy losses beyond calculation. Armada ready for advance. The captain's voice was low, steady. Set course. We're not done. We go to their throne. The crew exchanged glances, their hearts heavy with both dread and pride. The throne world of the Council was a place no enemy had ever reached. To challenge it was madness. To attack it was suicide. But the Armada did not hesitate. Engines roared, shadows moved, and one by one the black warships vanished into the void, streaking toward the heart of the Empire. In the Council chamber, panic ruled. Alien leaders shouted, argued, begged for plans. They will come here, one cried. They cannot, another hissed. It is impossible. They've destroyed our fleets, a third screamed. Who will stop them now? The chamber, once proud and filled with arrogance, now stank of fear. And then the shadows arrived. From the skies of the Council's capital world, the Black Armada descended. Black steel blotted out suns, crimson lights bleeding across the heavens. The Council's citizens looked upward and trembled. They had always believed their rulers were untouchable. But now the storm was above their skies. The nightfall glided into orbit, its hull so dark it seemed to swallow the stars. The Leviathan's fang blocked out moons with its size. The ashen spear and the obsidian dawn stood at the front, weapons glowing faintly, waiting for a single word. For the first time in living memory, the Council's capital knelt beneath the shadow of another. Inside the chamber, silence reigned as a human voice broke across every channel, every screen, every world of the Empire. This is humanity. You demanded Earth kneel. Instead, we stand. And now you kneel. The words were not shouted. They were calm, steady, final. The Council elders looked at each other, trembling. Their empire stretched across 1,000 stars. But in this single moment, they felt smaller than dust. One elder tried to speak, his voice breaking. We can negotiate. But his words died when the obsidian dawn's cannons warmed, a crimson glow filling the skies outside. The message was clear. This was not the time for bargaining. This was the time for truth. Slowly, shakily, the elders lowered themselves to their knees. One by one, the rulers of the galaxy bent. Not because of treaties, not because of mercy, but because humanity had left them no choice. The Council had demanded Earth kneel. Instead, the galaxy itself knelt before Earth. On distant worlds, the news spread like wildfire. In mines where slaves had lived in silence, voices rose in cheers. On broken colonies, rebels lifted stolen weapons with new courage. Chains snapped, not from force, but from hope. And on Earth, people filled the streets in joy. Bells rang, drums thundered, voices cried into the night. We are free. We are unbroken. In the underground command center, the old general stood silently, watching the images. His face was stern, but his heart swelled. The scientist beside him whispered, "It's done." The council bowed. The general shook his head. "No, this is only the beginning. Empires fall slowly. But tonight, the galaxy knows one truth, that humanity kneels to no one." On the obsidian dawn, the captain gave his final command. "Hold position. Let them look into the sky and see us. Let them never forget this day." The Armada did not fire. It did not destroy. It did not conquer. It simply stood above the throne of the Empire, a wall of shadows and steel, a silent reminder that humanity had risen. In the silence that followed, the galaxy changed forever. The Council had ordered Earth to kneel. Instead, they were the ones kneeling. And in that moment, humanity became not just a people of Earth, but a power the stars would never forget.